You're listening to the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast, brought to you by the publishers of Indie Garage and Jobber Nation. Connect with us online at indiegarage.ca and jobbernation.ca, a brand of Chat Integrated Media.
Hello, everybody. It's Andrew Ross from the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast, the publisher and director of content for Chat Media. The issue of data access has been one that has dogged the aftermarket for the better part of a couple of decades since vehicles became more than points and condensers. And while it enjoys a certain degree of access now, as we look forward into the connected vehicles, telematics, and the adoption of 5G connected technologies, the issue of who owns that data, who can access that data, and what happens to it at the service level is of rising concern. I'm joined today by JF Champagne, the president of the Automotive Industries Association of Canada, which has just signed on with a program called Your Data, Your Car, Your Data, Your Choice, which is designed to raise the awareness of the issue among consumers, as well as to provide some leverage with lawmakers. So JF, thank you for joining me today on the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast.
It was a pleasure to join you, Andrew. Thank you for the invitation.
So maybe you could start talking a little bit about the issue that at hand and the current state of the consumer understanding of what is going on.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you. So as you pointed out in your introduction, the car is evolving rapidly. It's increasingly not just autonomous or electric, but it's increasingly connected. And that's the root of our issue, is that as these vehicle becomes increasingly connecting using telematic systems, the systems being put in place by automakers makes it so that they are essentially collecting and directly owning and controlling all of that information. And from a consumer perspective, our surveys or research shows that for the most part, Canadians don't understand the issue related to the control and ownership of their data. About a third of Canadians believe they already own the data on their car, which is incorrect. And a full other quarter of the population actually don't know who owns and control the data on their cars. And so that's a problem. But we know that a connected car, 100% of that information is in fact generated by the vehicle, transmitted in real time to the automakers. Now, if you ask the consumers who they think should own that data, well, it's in Canada, it's about 88%. So almost 9 out of 10 Canadians will tell you they believe they should be the one who owns and control the data on their vehicle. And obviously that's important because specifically from the perspective of servicing their cars, well, we want to make sure that having all the information under the control of the car maker would probably bring greater inconvenience as to where and how they get their car service, increase costs of repairs, and really limit their options when it comes down to repairing and servicing their vehicles.
What would you say to a consumer who might even think, hey, the automaker, they built the car. Why shouldn't they be the ones to fix it? Why shouldn't they have access to that data? We hear a lot of concerns about hackers, and we've all probably seen some videos on YouTube, hackers taking control of vehicles on the road, and what consumers who would say, hey, you know what, it makes a lot of sense to really restrict access to that.
Right. Well, that's a great thing. The aftermarket has come together. We were part of that telematics task force back in 2016, 2017, developing those technologies of cyber secure open access. And so there are technological solutions that ensures we could have direct access to a vehicle in a way that's cyber secure. Now, when it comes down to consumer choice, obviously you want to make sure that you have these options. And by the way, I think if you prefer to have your information shared with your dealership or the automakers, I think you should have that choice. But you should also have the choice to make your car serviced by third parties. And by the way, the vast majority of Canadians have continued to choose the aftermarket as their preferred repairers and continue to go back to the aftermarket. And Not only that, but if you are into rural Canada, you might not be very close to that dealership or that major centers that you could have access. And so you need options. And we know in the aftermarket, we've become extremely good at repairing all makes and models at a reduced cost for consumers with greater level of convenience. And that's what we want to maintain for consumers, is that right to choose and get those options.
Sure, sure. I mean, we hear a lot more these days in a lot of different segments of the economy and of our lives about the importance of having kind of localized solutions, community-based solutions for, whether it's support local initiatives or just wanting to maintain a certain sphere of travel that we're not going beyond these days, and this certainly plays into that. Now, a lot of the independent service providers in the market will argue that even though they don't have a mandated access in Canada, they do enjoy access through their third-party repair information services, and this might say, well, it'll get solved, we'll be fine, without, making any special initiatives. What's different going forward, in terms of the kind of technologies and real-time data that really makes that not necessarily a strong argument as we look ahead?
Yeah, so this time it really is the always on, immediate, instantaneous, direct communications of the vehicle in real time. That's probably the big game changer here. Because prior to that, our battles on right to repair that led in Canada to the voluntary agreement cases was really based on the premise that, well, I'm going to choose to go to independent repair shops versus the dealership. And once you've made that choice and drove into the service bay, then we're going to connect to the vehicle and do the diagnostic, repairing, calibrations, and so on. But now, even before you make that choice, all the information necessary for the diagnostic, the repair, is actually already in the control and ownership of the manufacturers. And that's what create really the difference in today's dynamic that we have to face and realize. And so you might not even have the choice or the time to make the decisions to go to your independent repair. The car maker already has control, already have the data, start to push down diagnostic repairs informations to your vehicle without you necessarily having the choice to make as to how and where and by whom you want your car to be serviced.
Okay. So now to obviously to press for this kind of a change in who owns the data, is not a small thing, and this is where the Your Car, Your Data, Your Choice initiative comes in. Let's just dig right into that. What's the focus? What's the background on it? And what can people do?
Absolutely. It starts with a great story of two great associations coming together, Auto Care Associations and ASA, which represents parts manufacturers for the aftermarket in the US, who got together and launched this campaign almost 2 years ago, I think now. Time goes. Your Car, Your Data, Your Choice. A campaign aimed again to educate industry, policymaker, and the public about the whole aspect of wireless data and telematics. And they've had great success in bringing this campaign, mobilizing the industry, making people aware. That really led to their recent victory in the state of Massachusetts, where they have essentially gone back to the ballot box and asked referendum questions as part of their recent election. And asked the people of Massachusetts, would you want to be able to directly access the wireless data of your car using your cell phone to be able to share that information with your repair of choice, maintaining again the concept of right to repair, essentially updating the previous legislations of right to repair that already exists in the state of Massachusetts. And despite a strong campaign by the car maker, it should be lost on us, this was the most amount of money ever spent on the ballot question in the state of Massachusetts. And so big push by the automakers who see great interest in this question. But despite all their efforts, 75% of the populations voted yes. So despite seeing a very divided, results in the United States, 75% of the population in Massachusetts said, yes, we want direct access to our vehicle data. And so great campaign. And we felt that it was important for us to convey this unified message. We are essentially driving the same cars, servicing the same vehicle the same way across North America, more so than ever before. And so as these vehicles becomes increasingly connected and autonomous, we're going to need to make sure that they're serviced, the same. You're driving down to Florida for the winter season. You want to make sure you could get the Canadian-made vehicle, that the vehicle you bought in Canada, service in the US, and true for the opposite as well. So we need to have a comprehensive solution. So for us, it was a natural fit to bring that campaign to Canada, show the policymaker that, yeah, this is a North American issues. We have North American solutions. We just need the legislators to force the hand a bit of those automakers who would rather not talk about it and control and own all of that data.
It does have the feel, of something that is kind of just quietly been happening in the background of most people's lives. We're, I think, more aware than ever of the massive amounts of personal information, location, and for all kinds of data that we're generating in our daily lives by, carrying around our phones and, talking on the phone and emailing and seeing different kind of responses through marketing messages and whatnot to avoid. But this has been sort of going on in the background. And I think it's a surprise, as you say, to most people or to many people, how that data generated by the vehicle that they're driving in is not theirs, is not in their control under the current state of information, correct?
Andrew, if we look back to our own evolutions as people using Facebook, I think is a good example. I don't think it was really front of mind to anyone in the early days of Facebook, of its influence and what data that we put into Facebook, how it could be used, and then realize, I think halfway through that, hang on, where's that data? Well, it all owned by a private enterprise. This is not public domain. This is not my data. We've actually voluntarily just given all that data to Facebook. And we start to see the recoil of this a bit, where we're trying to change our ways of working, our legislations. And I say to people, keep in mind, the second best thing after your cell phone to know about you is your car. It knows where you go, where your kids go to school. It knows a lot about your driver behaviors. It knows how much you weigh. And so it's a very powerful platform. And I get that the automakers, like the Amazon, the Facebook, the Google of this world, really want to be able to monetize that data. But here we come in and saying, through your car, your choice, that at least from a perspective of repairing and servicing your vehicle, there shouldn't be a monopoly on that data. And you as a car owner should be able to own and control that data, so you continue to have choices as to where and how you get your car serviced.
Right. I think it's, it's I think important to note that part of this conversation, important part of this conversation, is not that we're suggesting or that the initiative is suggesting that this data not be utilized or not be made available, or that somehow break the communication link with a central repository of this important logged data on the vehicle, but that it simply not be the sole preserve of the automaker, correct?
Correct. So it's to allow for direct access to that data for the purpose of maintenance and service. And so it does not prevent the automakers to continue to collect some of that data. In fact, we know for improving the product, they need that data. We know they use anonymized data as well. And collectively, we could probably use that data also to help, improve how we build highways. And so there's so many benefits of using these technologies for the goods. But here again, we're saying this is all good, but it shouldn't be a monopoly of the ownership of that data. And it should, again, be the choice of the consumer to see how they share that data. And by the way, I want to mention, just earlier this week, great timing, as we launched our campaign, Minister Bain is the Minister of Innovation, Science, and Economic Development, stable in the House of Commons, a reform of the Privacy Act, an introduction of the Canadian Digital Charter, which, quote unquote, is to empower Canadian greater control on their data. So this is not specific to automotive, but we're definitely using the campaign to remind the government and Minister Bain that we need to make sure that as we go through these reforms, yes, we think about Facebook and Amazon and Google, but we also think about the connected car because it is very much so another great example, business case, use cases where we want to make sure the consumer continues to be in control of their data.
Sure, I guess a happy confluence of events there, but it does show, I think, directionally where the thinking is going forward. The sort of overarching concern that people have, on being tracked and whatever data their own activities are generating without having kind of access to that. I did take a look at some of the highlights of that tabled legislation, the bill, I guess. And, among those things is that control to be able to dictate who has access to that information, as well as, not necessarily the primary concern for this, but whether to have that personal information disposed of as well. I mean, control is control, right? And if the control rests with the individual, people I think are becoming increasingly aware that that's something that they want to have, in their hands, not in in a third party, right? So
That's correct. Very much so. So to your point, we always said the time is now, the time is right. We have got a great victory in the state of Massachusetts where, clearly the politician says, yes, we want control. We have a great campaign that has been endorsed and supported by our friends in the United States. We're bringing this campaign to Canada. And essentially the call to action is we want everyone to go today and visit our change.org petition, which is generating emails again or communications to Minister Bain to remind him to make sure as he goes through the deployment of that legislation and the regulations that are going to come with it, that there are specific regulations that will apply to the automotive sector and that will, again, guarantee consumers direct access to that vehicle data for the purpose of repair and maintenance of their vehicle. And so we want to collect as many signatures as fast as we can and really make a case to the government that, yeah, this is an important issue. It needs to be tackled. We need to talk about it, despite some of the oppositions of the automakers who, as I said, would probably rather not tackle the issues or the conversation and continue to deploy proprietary system that really makes them in full control of all that telematic data. So we need to change that trend. We need to send a strong message to the government as they go through that privacy reform.
right now, that's the version of this petition in the U.S. is approaching 30,000 signatures since that went up a little over 2 years ago now, which is not bad, and certainly their activities in the U.S. have been necessarily more dispersed as they go state by state by state to either get initiatives moved forward or block other restrictive initiatives. What's your hope for the next month, 6 months, 2 years from now in Canada with the initiative?
Sure. Well, essentially, we're obviously right now looking at this Privacy Act. It's hard to tell how fast the Liberal government will be able to carry this piece of legislation through. I know there's a lot of support to get this done. I think it's long overdue. In fact, many stakeholders in and outside of automotive says, this is long overdue. How long it will take for those regulations to get in place? Keep in mind, we have a minority government. And so not lost on us is the potential that this government might not be able to complete the work, or even if they do, might have to go into an election. So we want that issue of data privacy to be also part potentially of the next election. So I think we're into this for definitely the next year, and really a bit of at the mercy of how the political landscape will change. But in the meantime is to grow the support, again, through the petition, because you apply the pressure on the government to say that this is an important issue. And Listen, we launched a petition less than a day ago. We're approaching 500 signatures. I am confident we'll have multiple thousands of them before the end of the year, and push really hard and reaching out to all of the industry people to come to the AIA website that we've created specifically for industry, take the pledge of the different things they can do to support the campaign, talk to their employees, communicate to their customers, um, post on social medias, endorse AI through social media. So there's a series of actions we're asking them to do. They could come and visit us to the AI website to do so. But again, primary, let's go to the change.org, sign the petition, and make your voice heard for the government.
Sure. How will they quickly find that petition?
So if you, it's a good question. If you actually find through some of our press releases on our website, social media at aiacanada.com, through our Twitter channel, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think it's also on the main page of our website. It's a change.org, which just says, I don't have the exact URL in front of me, but we'll make sure to participate or share it as well.
Sure. Yeah, and we'll certainly have it at jobbernation.ca and indiegarage.ca as well. You can access it, get a little more background on this with our reporting on coverage of this issue, as well as the links to the access information website. So from the grassroots level, I mean, obviously, is something that every individual can do. Certainly, the shops out there can reach out to the website and sign the petition themselves and I guess drive it out to their customers.
Absolutely. The aftermarket employs over 400,000 people in Canada. We employ more people in the aftermarket than in agriculture or natural resources. Our industry survival, all these small and medium-sized enterprises across the country, depends on our capacity to continue to provide consumer with safe repairs. The time is now to react to this. If a quarter of us take the simple step to put our name forward, that's 100,000 signatures we could collect. But to your point, Andrew, I think there's a lot of consumers as well concerned about the control of their privacy, their data, that would probably be able to also say, you know what, I could support this cause as well. And so talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, talk to your suppliers, talk to your customers. Make sure to spread the word, follow us on social media, retweet, repost, and that's how we're going to be able to achieve that number that will make it so that Minister Bain will have to take greater actions in ensuring that in fact we have strong regulations as part of this reform that will ensure we continue to have direct access to information we need to fix cars.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, JF. It's been great talking about this really important issue and this very promising initiative. I think that to put the competitive spin on this, I think we can do better than 30,000 signatures in Canada if we pull together even just a bit.
Yep.
Reach out to the change.org, your car, your data, your choice petition. And we're sure to kind of send those numbers skyrocketing. I think that's a good thing for the industry. Let government lawmakers know what the sentiment is out there. It's very clear that the consumer at large believes they should have control over who has access to that repair information. It's a battle that's going to be ongoing. I know that in past days, certain suggestions were made that certain right to repair battles had been won, but this is going to be an ongoing initiative, correct?
Absolutely. People have been at this longer than I have. Always said, right to repair is an ongoing battle, and as technology evolves, we have to take on that battle once again. We did, I think, pretty good back in 08, 09, leading to the Kisses Agreement. Now looking at the connected cars, we're back at it. And each time, understand that the industry has rise to the occasion. So looking forward to see some great results and get some strong support from the government to ensure, again, we have this direct access to the vehicle information for consumers.
Good stuff. All right. Well, that's great. Thank you, everybody, for joining JF and I. Thank you, JF, for joining me. This has been the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast. Have a great day.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Great Canadian Aftermarket Podcast, brought to you by the publishers of Indie Garage and Jobber Nation. Connect with us online at indiegarage.ca and jobbernation.ca, a brand of Chat Integrated Media.